Hello, and thank you for tuning in for this preview lesson of ArtStream, Lane Arts Council's live stream arts education program. My name is Eric Brayman, and I'm the Arts Education Program Manager with Lane Arts Council. Together with our organizational leadership team, teaching artists, and with feedback from curriculum leaders, educational administrators, teachers, and parents, we have developed ArtStream to support the distance learning needs of schools this year. We know this year is like no other most of us have seen in our lifetime. Everyone in the world of education is being innovative and creative this year to continue to bring our students a high quality educational experience. We are hopeful that ArtStream may support your school or family as we continue to innovate and adjust. ArtStream was built to accomplish four primary goals. First, to provide students access to creative expression and accessible art making from wherever they may learn. Second, to support the mental health and well being of students through guided mindfulness and reflection activities. Third, to support physical education goals by getting students moving and grooving in dance and performing arts. And fourth, to support core curriculum goals by incorporating math, science, language arts, and social study content into every visual arts lesson. Our curriculum will target particular age groups to ensure our lessons are both accessible and properly challenging for students. These age groups are broken down as grades K through 2, grades 3 through 5, and grades 6 through 8. All right, enough for me. Let's experience some art. Please enjoy the sample ArtStream art lesson brought to you by Lane Arts Council.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Marie Hummel and I'm a ceramic artist based here in Eugene, and I'm also a teaching artist through Lane Arts Council. And today I'm going to be showing you how to make your own modeling dough from scratch. If you've ever baked a cake, you're going to be surprised how similar of a process this is. And in fact, actual clay, real clay that pottery is made from, is actually very similarly made from the raw powdered ingredients. So you're going to be learning a lot about this process. First, we're going to take a moment to become aware of our bodies so that we can be fully engaged in this process of making clay. So please close your eyes, sitting up tall where you are, and start to wiggle your fingers and hands, moving up your arms to your chest. And we're going to take a really deep, full breath in and exhale with a ha. So we're going to go ha. Then we're going to move our arms with our breath. So we're going to reach our arms out to the sides and then overhead as we breathe in. And exhale as we reach our arms back out to the sides and down. Let's do that one more time together. Inhaling. Exhaling. So this is a really helpful way to energize your body and your mind. When we're more aware of what's going on in our bodies and in our minds, we can be more in the moment and connected to what we're creating. This is a big part of craft and art, for me at least, and I think it will be helpful for you as well. So our first step today is going to be organizing your materials. You can see that here I have laid out all of my materials. I'm going to show you here what ingredients we have for our activity today. We're going to have flour, salt, cream of tartar, vegetable oil, boiling water, and food coloring. And we're going to also need some bowls, a spatula, and some measuring spoons and measuring cups. So we're going to organize these materials. I'm going to move all of my dry materials over to one side. My food coloring is over here. Cream of tartar. I'm going to move my measuring cups off to the side and my spatula and spoons off to the side. Here you can see the range of colors that I've already created in the clay. We're going to be making a whole rainbow of different colors today. So step 2 is going to be setting up your workspace. Now that we've got all of our ingredients organized, we've moved them to the edge of the workspace. We have a nice clean space to work on right in the middle. There we go. Okay. Step 3 is going to be measuring out the ingredients. You will need the help from an adult mentor for this step because it's going to involve heating up water. So please, at this point, get your adult mentor in the room to help you out. Do not try to heat up the water on your own. This is something that you really need the help of an adult for. So we're going to mix the ingredients. The first step is measuring all of the dry ingredients into the bowl. So first we need to measure 1 1/4 cups of flour. So I'm going to find my measuring cups. Here's my 1/4 cup measure and my 1 cup measure. So I'm going to take 1 very full cup, put it in the bowl, and then a 1/4 cup. And put that in the bowl. I'm setting my measuring utensils off to the side here. I'll set this flour off to the side as well since we won't be needing that anymore. The next ingredient that we need to add is 1/4 cup of salt. So I'm going to take my salt, I'm going to take my 1/4 cup measure, I'm going to scoop out a full 1/4 cup of salt, place it in the bowl with the flour. Move my measuring spoon off to the side. And then the last dry ingredient that we have is the cream of tartar. So I'm going to unscrew the cap of this cream of tartar. I'm going to take out my measuring spoons, and we need 1 teaspoon. So I'm going to find the 1 teaspoon measure. Here we go. I'm going to take 1 level teaspoon of cream of tartar. Place that in the bowl. Screw the cap back on and move it to the side. And now I'm going to mix this up. You can mix it with your hands if you like, or you can use a spatula. Mix it up really well. Here, be careful not to get too much air. If you mix it really fast, it might create a lot of dust. So we're trying to just move it, kind of moving it around in the bowl, making sure that that very small amount of cream of tartar gets mixed in with the flour so that it's nice and even. All right, so next we're going to add the vegetable oil. This is the vegetable oil. I'm going to add a 1 1/2 teaspoons of vegetable oil. So I find, again, my teaspoon measure. I'm going to pour it into the 1 1/2. Oop. There we go. And before I mix that in, I'm going to also add the hot water at this point. Again, you'll need the help of your adult mentor for this step. So make sure that your adult mentor comes and helps you with adding the hot water to your modeling dough recipe. I have a thermos here of hot water that I'm adding. So we'll need a 1/2 cup of the hot water. Here I'm really careful to hold on the far end of the cup, measure and pour the hot water into that. Adding the hot water. And at this point, we're ready to start mixing it up. This cools off fairly quickly, but make sure your adult mentor stands by with you as you just begin this step of the process. I'm using my spatula to mix this up. You're going to see as you continue mixing it, all of the flour starts to absorb the water and the oil and starts to become thicker and less of a powder. now this is still just a little bit warm, but at this point you can probably mix it on your own. I'm using my hands here to gather up all of that powdered flour that's at the bottom, flour and salt that's at the bottom of the bowl, and I'm starting to knead it. So kneading, people often talk about bread. We knead a dough to make bread. When we talk about clay, we're actually wedging. So wedging helps when you're wedging clay, it helps to get out any unevenness in the consistency, in the temperature, if there's hard areas, if there's wet areas. Wedging helps even out the clay in preparation for working with it. So you can see now it's starting to really take on its own form. It's sticking all together in one ball, and I'm starting to be able to shape it a little better. At this point, I'm going to move my bowl out of the way, and I'm just going to start kneading it or wedging it on the table. So you can kind of squish it between your hands like this, make it into a ball. We're just continuing to mix the modeling dough so that it can become nice and even so that we can add color eventually. All right, so this is feeling pretty good. At this point, you might find that either your clay is a little too wet and sticky. You could add a little tiny bit of flour if you're finding that. If your clay, after kneading it, is still feeling a little bit too dry, you can add a little tiny bit of water, but I'd really recommend just mostly mixing it up really well. You can see how much I'm squishing it between my hands to combine it. All right, so now is one of my favorite parts. We're gonna start adding different colors to the clay, to the modeling dough. We are going to add colors based on 4 different colors of food coloring. I have blue, red, green, and yellow. And we're gonna make, as you saw from before, a whole rainbow of colors. We've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. So how do we make 6 colors out of 4 colors? This will be an interesting combination. Interesting focus on color exercises and the way that you create colors based on primary colors. So first I want you to break this piece of clay, this modeling dough, into 6 balls of clay. So you can divide it first in half if you want, and then each one is going to be broken into 3 balls. They don't need to be perfect here. They don't need to be perfectly divided. We basically just want 6 balls of clay. I'm going to start with red. So I'm going to create a kind of flat little bowl in my hand. At this point, one option, if you do not like getting food coloring on your hands, is to put on your latex gloves. You're welcome to do that. I'm going to do this with bare hands. The food coloring is food safe, so it is okay to come into contact with your skin. So I'm going to take my red food coloring, take the lid off, and I'm going to drip maybe just 2 or 3 little drops into that little bowl that I made. And then I'm going to squish it close, and I'm going to just start folding it over on itself, and I'm going to start mixing up this clay. And you can see that the red is starting to come out of there. A little bit goes a long way, so careful not to add too much food coloring. all of the raw ingredients. You can see at this point it's a little bit pink. I'm going to add one more or maybe two more little drops of food coloring. So far for this little piece of clay, all we've used is 5 drops of food coloring. And that's going to go a long way to color this entire ball of clay. We mix it really well. What I like to do is move it back and forth between my hands, squishing it in one hand and then squishing it in the other hand. And this is going to start allowing that food coloring to work itself through the entire ball of clay. All right. So you can add more or less food coloring based on the color that you want. Completely up to you. I'm going to leave mine this color. Now we're going to move on to making orange. So orange is a combination of red and yellow. And so I'm going to take 3 drops of the red food coloring. And I'm going to take 3 drops of the yellow food coloring. Now I'm going to squish it shut. And if you find that as you close this shut that you drip food coloring all over, that's okay. So now I'm going to start mixing this up. Same idea, moving the clay back and forth from one hand to the other, getting it to evenly distribute throughout the clay. If you find that there are still streaks of color through the clay, as you might be able to see in here, then that means that you basically just need to keep mixing it. If you find that your clay is a little bit more red than you want, then you might add a drop of yellow. Okay, so now we're getting almost finished with the orange. I'm going to put it into a ball, make it into a ball, and now I'm going to move to the next ball of clay. We're going to make this one yellow. I'm going to drip 4 drops of the yellow into this little piece of clay. Mix it up. So you're starting to get the idea of how to add the food coloring to each ball of clay and then mix up the clay or wedge the clay as a method of getting that color evenly distributed throughout your material. One cool thing is that if you're noticing that lots of little pieces of clay are falling onto the table, you can actually pick them up like this. It acts like a magnet almost. It sticks to it. The material sticks to itself, which is one of the cool features. So then we'll move on to green. Here we have a green food coloring that came into the mix, so we can just add green, but green is also a combination of yellow and blue. So I'm going to add, you can do what you want. If you feel like combining the yellow and the blue together to get the green, you can do that. Or perhaps yours came with green food coloring. You can see here that I added quite a bit, and so I have food coloring on my hands. That's okay. This will wash right out. Mixing it really well. So this can be continued to be mixed, but we're going to finish here adding the colors to the last 2 balls of clay. You can see that this kind of has a marbled effect. Maybe you like that. That can be used that way. But I'm going to move on for the sake of time onto our other colors of clay. The blue, we can mix the blue in. Another cool way of getting the colors to mix is by rolling the clay between your hands into a coil and then bending it and rolling it again. So you have a little bit of a snake. Press it together. You might find that a little bit, if you do have food coloring on your hands from the previous colors, some of that color might get into the other ones. You are welcome to wash your hands in between, but I recommend just kind of going with the flow here. If there's just a small amount of green, it won't really affect the final color that much. So lastly, we have purple. I'm gonna press my little clay into a ball, into the little bowl here, add 2 drops of blue and 2 drops of red to make purple. That was 3 drops. And one thing you might notice is that if you press very carefully to close that little bowl that you made when you add the food coloring, you might have less of a chance of that food coloring going all over the place. One thing that I'm excited to explore more in future lessons is this idea of using natural food to create dyes. And one thing that I did measure out today is turmeric. Turmeric is a spice that you can actually use to make yellow. And as a result, you could use the turmeric to make orange by using red food coloring and turmeric. There are lots of other ingredients that you can probably find in your kitchen that are super cool that create very bright and vibrant colors in the clay. So feel free to maybe do some more research on that. You can try beet juice. The next time you have some beet juice or beets that are being cooked in your house, you could take some of the water that those beets have been cooking in, and that can be a beautiful red dye. You can also use blueberries to create blue by cooking some blueberries down and straining out the juice. So those are some different options. You're welcome to experiment and try more. If it involves cooking, be sure to get the help of your adult mentor in those projects. So I'm going to move my, now that we've added all the colors, we are going to do a little bit of modeling. If you're feeling frustrated at any point, this is a great time also, by the way, if you're feeling frustrated, oh, my color won't blend in all the way, and I've been mixing it up for a long time, this is a great time to come back to our exercise from the beginning. A deep breath in, and just relaxing for a second, maybe even setting down your clay, noticing if you're having any frustrations rise up, that you can always come back to that breath being in your body, and that's going to help you maybe relax, calm down, and keep trying. So now that we have finished making our clay, you can see that some of these could use some more mixing. And maybe your clay is in the same boat. You're welcome to continue mixing it. I want to just show a couple of the different options that we're going to have in future lessons that I'll be offering. This is just a sample lesson today, but in future lessons, we're going to be doing all different kinds of things with this material that we've created. This range of colors gives us tremendous flexibility in the types of things that we can create. And so I'm going to just talk a little bit about 2D and 3D shapes. So for those of you that are in kinder through second, learning about shapes, learning about spheres, this is a really cool material that we can use to explore those ideas using our hands, using our creativity. So I want you to first make a sphere or a ball with your clay. We've been doing that each time. And notice this ball, this sphere is round all the way around. If you place it on your table or workspace, you can flatten it out with your hand. And I can move this to the center here. And you can even tap it a little bit with your hand. Now we've created a circle, more of a one-dimensional circle. We could shape this more to create a triangle. And this is pretty much a two-dimensional triangle, meaning that it is flat against the table. If we try to make a triangle that can stand up on its own on the table, we might come up with a pyramid or a cone. So here I am kind of making a cone shape with my clay on my table, and you can kind of turn it around, pinch it. You can see that it's pointy on one side, and if you just look at the camera, it does create a triangle, but it's a three-dimensional object. It's a cone. There we go. You can pretend it's an ice cream cone and put all of your ice cream inside. Another thing we can try out is different hand building methods. So when I've taught hand building in the past, some of the very basic elements of hand building involve making coils. So try taking your ball of modeling dough and creating a snake or a coil. And I do this by placing first, kind of squishing my clay into more of a long hands like this, rolling from the center to the outside with very even pressure from my hands. So my coil becomes longer and longer. The coil can then be used to create all kinds of things. In some of our lessons that I'll be offering with Lane Arts Council down the line, we're going to be creating entire solar systems of planets. So here, let's try making a coil around a sphere. You can imagine how maybe that would look a little bit like Saturn with the ring. We're going to be offering sculpting different parts of the human body using clay, such as the lungs, and creating very detailed structures using our clay to learn more about the human body. So these are all going to be lessons that I offer down the line with Lane Arts Council. Really consider subscribing. It's going to be an awesome session. I want to just move to our last step, which is storing your sculpting dough, your modeling dough. This modeling dough, we made it from scratch using all the ingredients as you saw. Of course, this dough will not keep forever. It'll just keep probably for a couple weeks. Some basic rules will help it stay preserved for longer. One rule is washing your hands each time before you use it. This helps any organic matter or anything that's on your hands, prevents it from coming into the modeling dough. You can also store it in a Tupperware in your fridge. A little plastic container would work fine, and you can put it in the fridge. That'll help preserve it for longer. So for our final reflection, I want you to take a moment, sit back, relax, and close your eyes, and remember the process of doing this. And with your eyes closed, maybe pick one aspect of this lesson that was your favorite part. Maybe it was adding the colors, maybe it was mixing all the ingredients together and measuring out the dry ingredients. Maybe it was starting to shape the clay and model the clay into 2D and 3D objects. So let's all take a deep breath together. And I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Feel free to play more with your sculpting dough. Now you have your very own sculpting dough to play with at home. I'm interested to see what you come up with. And as I said, experiment with different shapes that you can create with this material that you made by yourself. In upcoming lessons, we'll be exploring using this material, as I said, to model three-dimensional objects and two-dimensional objects, maybe modeling planets and solar systems and parts of the human body. So the possibilities are endless, and your hands are really the only tools that you need at this point. So we're going to have 4 more lessons to explore this material. So tune back in. Thank you so much for tuning in